All right. So good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can see that. So before I get going, I just want to make sure that I acknowledge Carol Lovett. Carol was the person who spearheaded all of this research over quite a number of years on using GA in avocados. Uh, Ben and Mary Lou probably have a better idea how many years she spent, but I would guess 10 or 12 at least. Well predated my time starting with the avocado industry that Carol was working on this, and it was finally approved for use in 2018. And so I'm going to go through, so pretty much all of the data you're going to see today is from Carol that was generated during her trial work. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. So the purpose here is to use PGRs to increase yield and profit. So PGRs are, as Mary Lou said, they're a tool that are available to increase fruit size and yield in existing plantings so that hopefully you can increase grower profit. So gibberellic acid, GA3 or ProGib LV Plus, was approved for use on avocados on March 27th, 2018. And I will spend a lot of time at the end of this talk talking specifically about the approval of it and what you can and cannot do under the current registration for ProGib LV Plus, because it's not a normal registration. So ProGib is manufactured by Valent Biosciences out of Illinois. ProGib LV Plus is currently the only gibberellic acid product that you are allowed to use on avocados in California. And again, I'll talk more about that. The LV stands for low volatile. It's a low volatile organic compound formulation. So you cannot use the previous original ProGib formulation, which has high VOCs in it. And you cannot use generic GA3 products at this time. The benefits of ProGib LV Plus: it has a 4-hour reentry interval. There's a 0-day pre-harvest interval, and it is certified organic. So if you're an organic producer, you can utilize ProGib LV Plus in your groves. Application timing, and again, I'll speak more to this towards the end of the talk, but you apply this product as a foliar spray. It cannot be applied any other way. And you need to target the cauliflower stage of inflorescence development. So that picture there for you in the upper right-hand corner shows you a cauliflower stage inflorescence. The way you want to try to achieve this is when 50% of the trees in a block that you wish to treat have approximately 50% of their bloom at the cauliflower stage, is when you want to make your application. That means 25% of your bloom is going to be at an earlier stage, 25% at a later stage. If you need to err one side or the other, it's better to go late than early. However, the product has no effect on open bloom. So you still need to have closed bloom in order for this to be effective. So the rates and application, you apply this like you would a pesticide spray. You want full canopy coverage. This product is not translocated, so you really need to get good contact with the developing inflorescences. You do not want to spray to runoff, but you do need good canopy coverage. Ground applications and aerial applications both are approved. You do use 12.5 ounces of product per acre. That's 25 grams of active ingredient. For ground applications, the label says you use 100 gallons of water per acre. And for aerial applications, you use 75 gallons per acre. And I'll circle back again later in the talk about this 100 gallons per acre for the ground applications. The 25 grams of active ingredient, or 12.5 ounces of product, is the maximum that you are allowed to use per acre per year. So you are restricted to one application. So we know this becomes problematic when we have really protracted blooms and things are spread out. It's really difficult to target when to apply ProGib. Hopefully, we'll get some resolution on that in the near future, but for now, you are limited to that one application. Again, Carol did a lot of work on this. Higher and lower doses are not effective. This 12.5 ounces or 25 grams of active ingredient really is the sweet spot to make this product work effectively. It does require a fairly specific pH range, 5.5 to 6. You must avoid high pH water. If you need to correct the pH of your water, you need to do that before you add the ProGib to the spray tank. High pH water will deactivate the product. So you'll just be wasting your money at that point. And you do want to include a wetting agent. All of the trial work was done using organosilicone surfactants, either Silhouette 77 or Widespread Max, but you can use any other similar products. And you want to have a wetting agent in there at 0.05% final concentration in your spray tank. So a little bit more on the spray volume. So all of the trial work that Carol did over the years for ground applications was done using between 200 and 250 gallons of water per acre to get really good canopy coverage with no runoff and being able to effectively cover an acre of trees. The label, as I said, limits you to 100 gallons of water per acre for ground applications. This was a screw up. It was not a screw up on Carol's part. It was not a screw up on the part of CAC. This was a screw up from Valent Biosciences when they submitted all of the paperwork to EPA and DPR for registration. So unfortunately, we're stuck with that. You can speak with your county ag commissioner, and I know at least some of them have provided a blanket approval to go to the higher volume of water for ground applications. But if you're not sure, call your ag commissioner's office or check with your PCA to see if the commissioner in your county has given a blanket approval or if you need to get specific approval. But again, you can only use 12.5 ounces of product. It's only the spray volume that you can potentially change to those higher volumes. All of the helicopter trial work that was done at 75 gallons of water per acre, which is what is on the label. So we don't recommend you look at making any adjustments to that. Excuse me. So now I'm going to talk about some of the yield data that was seen with this product. Taking all of the trial work that Carol did over the years and sort of synthesizing that into a summation, a minimum of 22 pounds net increase in total yield per tree was seen over all of the trials, and that included trees that yielded anywhere from 44 to 373 pounds per tree. So this is effective over quite a yield range, but you still have to have some yield on the tree for the product to work. So that's a minimum net increase of 2,425 pounds per 110 trees per acre. When the orchards are producing from 4,850 to 41,000 pounds per acre. So again, over a very large range of yields. The nice thing about this product is it doesn't just increase the number of fruit so that you're just getting a bunch of small fruit. It acts fairly uniform across the size spectrum, so that you do also get a bump in that sweet spot, 40s, 48s, and 60s, which we usually get the best prices for. So let's look at some specific data. So this slide is just one that I chose to show. This is yield from an alternate bearing grove. So the columns on the left of this table show you the yield in pounds per tree. The columns to the right show you the number of fruit per tree. And then the first couple of rows show you the 2-year average data. And then the lower 2 rows show you the data for the on and off years. So looking at it, you can see the 2-year average yield. The control trees yielded 33 pounds per tree. When treated with GA, that bumped up to 50.5 pounds, or a 51% increase. Looking at just the large size fruit, again, 40s, 48s, and 60s, changed from 25 pounds up to 37 pounds, or a 47% increase. And you can see similar results when we just count the number of fruit per tree, a 60 and 51% increase. In the off year, 14 pounds per tree. In the on years, got a 69 pound yield on those trees. And again, a good increase in the number of large fruit, from 12 pounds up to 50 pounds on the treated trees. So it's not just increasing small fruit, it's giving you a good bump in large size fruit as well. So from a grove in Somas, that was a more uniform yielding grove. This is just showing you pounds per tree, averaged over a multi-year trial in that grove. So total yield in the control trees, 372 pounds per tree, increased to 408 pounds per tree. So what you'll notice here is, if you recall back to the previous slide, we went from 33 pounds to 50 pounds per tree, or a 51% increase. But when we have a lot of fruit on the tree to begin with, you get a much lower increase, only 10%. So, there is some maximum crop load that the tree is going to be able to carry. So the higher your yields are to begin with, the less of an increase you're going to see with ProGib, but it's still pretty significant. I mean, I think any of us would probably still be happy to take a 10% increase in yield, regardless of where we're at in production. But again, if you have a lower yielding grove, you will see a greater bump in yield compared with if you're already producing pretty well. So additional benefits that come from applying this, again, you get the increase in the pounds and number of fruit per tree if your yield potential is greater than 30 pounds per tree. If you've ever heard Carol give a talk about GA, you'll have heard her line that there has to be something there for the product to work with. So, if your trees are really struggling and not producing, don't waste your money and your time making a GA application. You have to have some level of production on those trees in order for the product to work. Yield increases are significant when averaged across on and off years, as 2-year cumulative yield. The great thing about using GA is that when you look at alternate bearing groves, the increase in yield doesn't come at the expense of exacerbating or increasing alternate bearing. So you see a bump in both the off and the on year production. So it's not like you're just increasing the yield in the on year and sacrificing yield in the off year. You get a bump in both years, sometimes better in the on year because you have more potential yield there if the trees are flowering well going into an on year. So you're applying this at bloom. There's going to be a mature crop on the tree that you're going to be harvesting that year. And we do see some effects on that mature crop. A reduction in fruit drop. There is a bump in fruit size for that fruit that's hanging on the tree that you're going to harvest that season. It also delays fruit blackening, but not at the expense of causing any issues with ripening or long-term fruit quality. And then on the setting crop, again, you get the increase in yield and fruit size. It also stimulates leaf growth, which helps with protection from sunburn. So you can see you tend to get more leafy inflorescences when GA is applied, again, helping with sunburn reduction. So I'm going to spend some time here to talk about the registration of ProGib. We do not have at this time a full label registration for ProGib for use on avocados. What we have is a special local needs registration, or an SLN. What happened here is that DPR started requiring manufacturers to reformulate their pesticide and other products to reduce volatile organic compounds. So Valent had to reformulate ProGib, and they created the ProGib LV formulation, the low volatile organic compound formulation. In the process of them doing that and re-registering that new product with DPR, DPR discovered that Valent had added a number of crops to the product label for which they had never submitted sufficient data to DPR. So DPR basically slapped their hand and said, you cannot add any new crops to the label for ProGib LV until you submit sufficient data for all of the crops that you currently have on the label, or you remove those crops on the label that you don't have sufficient data for. Unfortunately, we got caught up in the middle of that. This all happened right about the time that we were submitting our registration packet. So the workaround was to get a special local needs registration. That comes with some caveats. It's a temporary registration. So the original registration was received in March of 2018 and expired at the end of March of 2023. We were able to get a renewal for 2 years through December 31st of 2025, because unfortunately Valent still at the beginning of 2023 had not sorted out all of their issues with DPR. But you'll see there that the original registration was 5 years. The renewal was only for 2 years. So, DPR does not like special local needs registrations. They want you to have a full label. And so I hope that Valent will be able to work out their issues by the end of 2025 and we'll be able to get on the full label. But until that time, you are restricted that you can only utilize ProGib LV+, which is the product that we have the special local needs registration for. You cannot use any other formulations of gibberellic acid while we have this SLN label. You have to make sure that you have a copy of the SLN label with you when you make an application. You cannot just have the product label that comes on the package. If you need to have a copy of it, and you need to make sure now that you have the current SLN, not the original one that expired, you can get that on the CAC website. Go to CaliforniaAvocadoGrowers.com, type in ProGib. The first link that pops up will take you to a page that will get you that label, and you can download a copy of it. So I believe, yeah. So I'm nearing the end. So there are some issues right now because of the label that we have. So I mentioned, targeting the bloom is difficult. You can only make one application a year. In all of the trial work that was done, Carol did make multiple applications. She went to much higher rates. There's no issues with this product with phytotoxicity at high rates. There's no issues with phytotoxicity or anything like that with multiple applications. Again, that 12.5 ounces per acre is the sweet spot where you get the most yield bump for the best cost of application ratio. I'm cautiously optimistic that once we get on the full label, we will be able to get 2 applications at least approved. So you'll be able to target bloom a little better by making 2 applications, a week or 10 days apart, depending on how bloom is progressing. But until that time, again, we're restricted because we don't have a full registration. But hopefully we can resolve that. I would hope no later than 2026. I hope we have a full label by the end of 2025, and then maybe we can get that added onto the label to correct that issue and make it easier. So I just want to say, again, Mary Lou said right at the beginning, these are tools that you use to be more productive. I started my career working in ornamental horticulture. We used a lot of PGRs. I might offend some people with this, but you know, if you're a shitty grower, using GA is only going to make you a shitty grower who uses GA. And you're going to waste a lot of money. You know, you need to have your irrigation done and tied up and properly irrigating your trees. You need to be properly fertilizing your trees. You need to be properly pruning your trees. If you've got everything else in order, using GA can help you go that extra step and get an extra bump in yield. You know, if you're poorly managing your irrigation, you're under fertilizing your trees are riddled with Phytophthora, don't waste your money using ProGib. You need to get the basics right before you can get this product to really work and be effective for you. So with that, I thank you, and I will be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, we have 3 questions, Tim. Basically, 2 of them are linked. So one is, how will other practices change when you're using the gibberellin, such as water, fertilizer, etc.? And a corollary of that one is, can you add nutrients when you apply the gib spray? Can you put other things in that tank?
Okay, so I mean, I wouldn't change any of my other practices. You know, again, you need to be properly irrigating your trees. You need to be properly fertilizing them, pruning them. You're trying to get them to set more fruit. So, you know, you need to have the tree set up to be able to carry that crop load that you're going to expect it to carry. And that's all part of good management with irrigation and fertilization. In terms of tank mixing, none of the trial work was done using anything else in the spray tank. I do know a lot of growers have used, you know, thrown in some micronutrients, things like that. You can do that, you know, do a jar test first, make sure you're not going to have any precipitation or anything that's going to clog your sprayer or anything like that. The things that you do want to avoid would be boron or urea, both of which are also bloom and fruit set enhancers. In work that one of Carol's former students did in Mexico, when they combined GA with boron as a bloom spray, they got a lot of double pistil fruit, which are just going to get called out when you pack them. So you do want to avoid other bloom and fruit set enhancers, but throwing in a general, you know, micronutrient package or something is probably fine, as long as you don't get any precipitation or anything like that in your spray tank.
And then we have one other question is there any data looking at the impact of increased productivity on the productive life of the tree?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you know, as long as your tree is healthy and well managed, production should not do anything to decrease the life of the tree.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. Thanks, Tim. So we'll probably come back and have more questions about that. We'll now go on to Ben Faber.